All right, guys, we're back. Sorry, we lost connection, but I'm not going to hold you up. So, we were talking about the downtown district in Petal, what has to happen to make that work. You need investors. There was a proposal that was announced or given to the city in 2009. It's a great proposal, but it takes investors or people who are willing to come in, buy up this property, and develop it. So, there's a previous video here. If y'all want to go catch up on that, you can. But we're just going to continue talking.
All right. Anyway, what I was going to say though is we're doing all we can do. We hired a few years ago. We had a 3-year contract with a group called Retail Strategies, and they are a retail recruitment firm that goes out. They go to all of these retail markets and shows, promote Petal, try to attract new business to come here to Petal. Unfortunately, we didn't have much success with them, and it kind of showed us a point that I believe people need to really understand, and that is there's very little the city can do directly
Right.
to recruit somebody to come to Petal. They already sort of have to have us on the radar. And one of the things that holds Petal back, if we were Petal as we are now, with a great school system and the safest city in Mississippi and a great reputation, but we were located, let's say, where Collins is, we would probably have twice as much to offer in Petal than we do now.
Now, why?
Because we are close to Hattiesburg.
Okay, there's competition right there.
If a new business comes in, and they look at the demographics and the population, traffic, and everything else, and they say we could locate in Hattiesburg and have 10 times the people go by our store than Petal, and the Petal people still will also drive right across the bridge and go to Hattiesburg.
Right.
We get the best of both. Okay, if we were 30 or 40 miles away from Hattiesburg, we'd be more attractive because people would be like, well, they're not going to drive to Hattiesburg as frequently. We could put something there, and they'll go there to that one instead of going to Hattiesburg. So, being close to Hattiesburg is a blessing and a curse for us. It's a blessing. We get to be close to USM. We get to be close to the hospitals. We have things like that available. A lot of jobs over there in Hattiesburg. Petal's always been a bedroom community. Go to work in Hattiesburg, come back and stay in Petal. We've tried to change that and start growing more things here. And we have, but it takes time because these businesses that first come in, they say Hattiesburg is the hub. We'd rather be in Hattiesburg. People in Petal can just drive there. So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse there, but we're slowly changing that.
So what would it take as far, the investment that would, what kind of investor and what kind of money would it take to start the ball on this thing? Because a few people in the community have mentioned, what if people and members of the community collectively make a group and put put their money into this fund?
Well, I mean, you'd have to have however much it costs to build those buildings. I mean, there's a cost. There's a cost to constructing.
Did that proposal have like a estimated thing?
It was all, like I said, it could have easily been somebody drawing a skyscraper and saying we want to build an office tower in the middle of Petal, and that would have been just as much of a plan as what we had. We'd love to see a little downtown area like they had drawn on the plan, but it could have been a lot of different versions of that. It's going to take someone though coming in saying that's a good location as far as attracting people to come into that area.
Right.
Enough traffic. A lot of things deals with traffic counts. How much traffic goes by there every day. And of course, when Petal built the Gandy, well, we didn't build the Gandy. When MDOT built the Gandy for Petal,
I was wondering about that.
When all that was first started, that was back in the 1990s. Okay, the first idea of all that probably was when I was just finishing up college. And when it was first announced that they wanted to have what they called at that time a bypass around downtown Petal, I think the first thing everybody thought was that's going to kill downtown Petal.
Right.
And it basically did. It helped Petal in a lot of ways because it gave us a new avenue of development for different kinds of stores and shops and things. But the ones that existed in downtown, the traffic count dramatically went down. So you're not going to bring in a lot of new things that require high traffic counts. My personal view, what would be best for downtown would be if we could develop some type of office park where you have professional offices that are not driven by people just going by every day seeing a sign. They went there because they know they're going there to see their lawyer, their dentist, their insurance agent, whatever. And
like a community a lot of entrepreneurs in Hattiesburg do this. I've been to these places, but some of them are even they start off as like big storage units, where they build in an office, and there's like a air conditioned part where an office can be, and then there's a storage part if you own a blue collar business, if you do lawn or whatever. But all of these different entrepreneurs stacked up together, that is something people are looking for now. And the average entrepreneur starting out, because I was one of them, I am one of them, cannot afford your basic commercial real estate in the beginning.
Yeah. I think they call those like incubators or something like that. They let you have a place to basically grow your business.
Right.
Even if it's just a really small office with one desk and a phone, you've got a place to call your office and you start there. Those would be something that could be put there. You could have what I think too would be good if you had a mixed use where you had a storefront on a bottom floor and a townhouse apartment on a top floor, because then you're bringing in the people in that area to then shop at those shops that are there. You've got a ready-made audience, so to speak. But again, those are ideas that anybody can come up with, but it takes someone who says, I want to put my money in that. I think I can make money off that. I think that'd be a good investment. Then the city can come in and say, we'll help. We'll put you a road in, or we'll put you some sewer lines, we'll put you some extra water line, whatever you need to make it work. Or we'll give a tax break. The city could say, if you're willing to invest, $25 million into building this new structures in here, we'll give you a break for 10 years on what the city taxes would be so that you don't have to pay as much. You can afford to build it, and that's another tool that we have. But it takes that initial investment, and so the city can't. I see all the times people have like a wish list of what they wish we had here in Petal. I get amused because sometimes people put it as if we've never thought of that before. Like, yes, we would love to have Chick-fil-A. Yes, we would love to have Target. Yes, we love.
But the citizens or people have to be the.
But you got to have those people wanting to come here. We can't make it happen. The city doesn't call up somebody and say, "Hey, Target, put a store here on Level and Gandy. We want you here by next year," or whatever. That doesn't work. Okay, they have an area they look at and they decide. Let's look at this. Let's see what the traffic counts are. Let's see how many people live within 20 miles of here. Let's see what they spend on furniture. Let's see what they spend on clothes.
Right.
There's a lot of things that go into it that the city has absolutely no control over. So,
well, what about?
We would love to see all that happen, but it's not going to happen until the people from outside want to bring their money in and invest here.
What about the grants? Because a decade ago, I graduated college a decade ago, but I lived in Hattiesburg before and after college briefly, and I was not in Petal for a lot of the past decade. But having said that, I was around downtown Hattiesburg during the development phase when everything was kind of starting to take off there, and I kind of witnessed it and documented a lot of it because I was working there. But I spoke with a friend of mine who attends all the Hattiesburg, pretty much all the city council meetings, and he was saying back when downtown Hattiesburg was being developed that there were a lot of grants. It was basically a movement that was happening where downtown areas were kind of popping up everywhere, and there were a lot of opportunities to get money, for cities to get money for that.
There are some programs. Mississippi Power has some programs, but the money that you're talking about is more along the lines of fixing up what you've already got, not bringing in something new and building from scratch.
So you could brand a building.
If you had a building, let's say one of these downtown buildings in Hattiesburg, that they've turned into now a loft apartment,
right?
You can fix up something like that with some of these grants. But we don't have anything to start with. We have Walgreens and Rite Aid and Hardee's, and you would have to come in and buy that property and build from scratch if you wanted to build anything like that. So another problem Petal has with grants is we don't qualify for a lot of the same things Hattiesburg does. You have to either have a disadvantaged population within so many in an area, like you have a higher minority population or a higher population that's below a certain income level to qualify for a lot of these grants. Petal, we have a few pockets, but we don't have them enough that we qualify for most of those kind of grants. So our income level as a city is a little bit too high. Our minority populations or disadvantaged populations are a little bit low. We're kind of in the middle. We're not a rich city, but we're also not a poverty-stricken city. So those grants a lot of times just don't really fall into our category. Now, the other problem is with most of those grants, you also have matching funds. So if you wanted to get a big grant, let's say you wanted to get a $1 million grant to do some big project, the city probably still gonna have to come up with around $200,000. Usually you have to have about 20%. So about 200,000 for us is a lot.
Right.
Now for Hattiesburg, that's a drop in the bucket. They've got an $80 million budget. We've got an $8 million budget. Okay, so again, grants are good if they fall in the right category and you have enough matching money to do it. But it's not a save all, catch all thing. It doesn't always work for everybody, and we're just kind of in that category that just we don't quite get it.
So what would it take, like with the luxury apartment idea? What is that? How does that play into all this? Is that basically saying that investors are willing to come invest in that side of town, but not downtown?
Yeah, like Dr. York with York Developments, he approached us a few years ago about putting a luxury apartment complex on Bird Boulevard behind Walmart. Now, that's never happened. I don't know why. They bought the property. We agreed to a TIF plan where we were going to basically take the property tax money to be generated by that to invest in putting some sewer lines, some infrastructure in there. But they, for whatever reason, have stalled. I heard that it had to do with the cost of building the apartments was going to be more than what they originally anticipated. Therefore, they've kind of put off on it. That's in their hands. Again, we're not holding anything up. We're ready to go.
Right.
But yes, that investor picked that location and thought that location was where they could sell apartments. They could rent apartments there. It would take someone who looked at our area in the older part of town and said, I think I've got a crowd that wants to rent there and would be willing to rent there. So eventually I think we are going to see more things come into that area, but it may be down the road to where we have more things on the Gandy first, and then when that starts sort of filling up and you have more traffic coming through town, more population coming into town,
Right.
they may say, well, now we can get enough people over here that we could do that.
Right.
One of the things I've tried to do from a business standpoint is, I've heard somebody say, we need more pro-business. Look, we've been the most pro-business administration. We have not turned down anyone who has come to us for help, that anything the city can legally do or financially be able to afford to do to help a business that wants to come here, we have done, okay? All they have to do is come ask, and we try our best to accommodate whatever they need. We have not said no to anyone. Now, when I came into office, Petal had a reputation for high taxes. We have high taxes because we have a school system, the county taxes, and the city. If you live inside the city, you pay all three. Well, I can tell you, since I've been mayor, we haven't raised city taxes, not one dime. That also goes even back 2 or 3 years into the previous administration. So we've gone a total of around 14, 15 years with no tax increase. Now, some people say, well, y'all should have raised taxes a little bit here and there, and you could have more money to put into recreation, more money to put into this.
Well, like the Hattiesburg 1%.
Well, not only that, they're talking about regular property tax, not just extra. They're saying if you raise millage every year, you would have enough money to, pay your firemen more and to do this and that. Yeah. But you know what you also do? You make it more expensive for people to live here. You make it more expensive for a business to locate here. We already had a reputation for being high in taxes. I've tried to keep us where we were and let other people. Hattiesburg now is more expensive than we are. Hattiesburg's taxes are higher than Petal's taxes. If you look at adjusted for inflation, our taxes now are lower per inflation than they were 10, 12 years ago. So it's more affordable now to be here. The taxes aren't as big of a problem. Now, if we fall back into the next administration, if whoever they are come in and they say, now we're gonna boost this spending by this much and this spending by that much, yeah, they can do some more things, but there we go. The price is gonna go up. Building a new house is gonna be more expensive in Petal. Buying a car and having a tag is gonna be more expensive in Petal. That keeps people from wanting to live in Petal, okay? And without the rooftops, you don't get the commercial development. Commercial development looks at rooftops. How many people live here? We need more housing to attract more commercial development. It all goes together. So it's a lot more complicated than just saying, hey, we want this or that. You have to create an environment that attracts people to want to come here and live. Then you have to have the population to attract the business to come in and want to be here.
Now, what about some of the businesses or the buildings in downtown currently? I'll get to some of these. JS just made a comment I'm going to read in just a minute, but some of the downtown buildings are, they're just vacant. They've just been there for a while. Now, do you look at the compare what you're earning in tax revenue off of that versus what you could potentially earn off of a working business there.
Well, the problem is we can't force anyone to do
That,
anything with
yeah,
property.
that's what
I know you mentioned one property owner that owns a lot of property in Petal. I know exactly who you're talking about. I wish he would sell his property to people who wanted to do something with it. He lets it get in bad shape. We have to go in and try to make him clean it up. The board a lot of times doesn't want to really force his hand to clean it up, so we drag it out and drag it out. It still looks bad. It's still drawing our property value down. But again, the board has to be able to back us up on trying to enforce
right.
those codes, okay? And then we can't force anybody. I can't force him to sell that old Pizza Hut building to somebody. If he wants to hold on to it, he can hold on to it. The city can't come in and take it from him. I don't want to be in a country where suddenly the government can just come in and tell me you didn't use your property the way we wanted you to, so we're going to take it away
right.
from you and everything. So,
yeah.
option on that.
There's a slippery slope there because when you like, I used to work for the tax assessor 10 years ago in college. I worked for Mary Ann Palmer. I worked in mapping. And so I was at the desk when people would come in to look at parcels of land or to look at the tax sale and see what's up for bid and all that. And I noticed that's how I kind of started following that person. I'm not going to say anybody's name, but, you know, I can go look at Delta Computer Systems today and see the list. And, you know, I've even called on a few of those pieces of property, one of them right off Highway 11. It's like a house that's kind of just falling apart and it's zoned commercial. But I've called and I've asked, like, you know, are you interested in maybe giving me a tour of everything you've got? So, you know, certainly somebody has to have conversations with the people in this town who own so much land and property and a lot of it being commercial, a lot of it being in the city where you're saying, if it's not being used, it's lowering the value of property around it. And it just, you know, that's what bothers me is that I've watched for a decade while nothing has happened. And I'm curious to know what are the goals.
It goes back for the decade. That person has been buying up property in Petal as long as I've been alive.
Right.
Even before it was a city. And it's been the same. Previous administrations have butted heads with him over the same thing. And it never gets resolved because for whatever reason, no one ever finally puts the foot down and says, either you clean up this property or we're going to start fining you every day that you don't get in within code. Now, we can't make you use your property, but we can hold you to a code and say the building has to meet this level of, you
standards.
You can't let it be dilapidated. You can't let it just fall in. You've got to maintain it. And I wish we would do a better job of that. I've obviously worked with our building department, and I've said, look, let's go and force them to clean up that property. Well, we'll go and we'll serve them with the notice we have to do. There's a legal process you have to go through. They get like a 30-day
and then they can fix it.
They come to the board, and what happens more than not, the board says, the guy says, well, I need 3 more months, then I'll get it fixed up. Okay, we'll give you 3 more months. Now, knowing this guy has had this property for 40 years, he's never cleaned anything up, but we're going to give him 3 more months, and then he comes back, guess what, 3 months later, still nothing. We bring him back before the board. It'll take me another 3 or 4 months. Okay, 3 or 4 months. We got to quit playing those games.
Yeah.
If we want it to look better, we're going to have to hold somebody accountable and make them clean it up, okay?
Or do something. Yeah, just encourage growth in general.
Yeah.
Jay Estes says 11 years ago, the Payne family was interested in investing in downtown, but wanted the city administration to come to the table with them. That never happened, and over time, they simply lost interest. Do you know anything about that?
When I came into office, no one ever came up to us or said, we want y'all to come to the table. We said then we would be at the table with anybody who wanted to invest. And I understand, I think they were unhappy with the previous administration about things they had done that they felt like they didn't agree with. I don't know all the details. I wasn't part of that. But I know that for the first few years I was mayor, I was told repeatedly they weren't interested in doing anything with that property. And a lot of it had to do with the way the previous administration had treated them. So I think now they are interested again. They've come to us. They have said, we'd like permission to look into this. And we've said, hey, you've got our blessing. Let's look at what you can do with that property. So they're back at the table. We're willing partners with them. And hopefully it'll move forward.
That's the Paynes, the
Yes.
same people.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said, what about the tattoo shop that closed down that he couldn't open due to him? I don't know if they're talking about that property owner or what. Megan, Dukes. You'll just have to clarify that. Do you know anything about a tattoo shop? I'll see if I can find out more about that. Somebody said, it's not, well, somebody mentioned Burkett Ross, which is, we didn't mention him, but, you know,
We tried
that's,
to make him clean up
that's
too.
a concern too with that, you
Yeah, but
know,
every time the city tries to make him clean up, it becomes where he says we're just targeting him because I supposedly don't like him. Well, you know, whether I like somebody or not, the law is the law. The code is the code. We try to be fair to everybody. We've given him plenty of time to clean up too. He hasn't done so. And I think him and Mr. Odom are both back on our list for our property hearing this coming Tuesday. Once again, for the same problems we've had. And it'll be interesting to see if the board gives them more time or if we finally say, you've got to get it done now. Or we'll come in and clean it up.
well, those are definitely things that I think, you know, because I've been thinking about everything that's going on in Petal. And I'm like, you know, now is the time for a rebrand or to move forward in a radical way somehow. And I think these conversations are so important because it shines light on what's causing us to not move forward. And as a Petal graduate at 31 years old, I moved back to Petal to raise my daughter here. And, you know, entrepreneur, I'm a marketer. And so I'm trying, like I've heard a lot of people say, I'm selling the Petal dream. Well, I'm trying to sell the business dream in Petal now. And my vision is so much different than what I'm working with now, but I can see it happening. I could see, a lot of people could see this coming to fruition, but we've all got to get more involved in voting and being a part. Like, what is it that the citizens can do at this point to really make a change and a difference and to make productive measures, you know, because we've protested, we've done all that, like that's happened. What can be done now from the citizen standpoint to move our city forward?
I would say that next year there's going to be elections. There's going to be elections for mayor, and every alderman spot will be up for election. I encourage people to run for those offices because we need people who want to be involved. And if you have new ideas and you think you have better ideas than what's been tried before, then you need to step out and offer those ideas to people. You can't do it from the sidelines. You can't do it on Facebook by just making a comment about why we don't do this or that, whatever. Educate yourself into how the system works. Get involved. We also have a planning commission that the alderman and myself, we all appoint people to that board. We have a lot of people who've been on that board for a long time, and probably in the soon we'll probably have people who will be retiring off that board. Volunteer to be appointed to those positions.
Now, are there any qualifications there?
No, you just need to live in each section of the city. Each ward has a spot on the planning commission. Plus, the mayor gets to appoint someone from citywide. Okay, so there's 8 spots altogether, and they serve for 5 years at a time, and then they have to either be reappointed or a new person appointed or whatever. So I would encourage people to just be aware of what's available for them to be a part of, and educate yourself on how the system works, on how our city government works. What we can and can't do. The city can't just come in and just make things happen. It takes, again, private business, private entrepreneurs. But if they have ideas, okay, run for office. Run in the next election and find out which ward you live in. And if you live in Ward 2 or Ward 1, whatever, then qualify and run. If you're a registered voter in the city of Petal, you're qualified to run. There's no special qualifications. You don't have to be a certain age. You're a registered voter, 18 or older, and live in that ward that you're running for.
Now, does this include outside of the city limits or just inside of the city?
You have to live inside the city.
Okay.
You have to live in the city limits. And but yeah, I mean, if you want to be involved, be involved. There's nobody holding anyone back. You know, I hear a lot of people say, "Well, the mayor he was elected unopposed, and that means it don't count." Well, actually, I did have an opponent both times I've run for re-election. I've never been unopposed.
Somebody asked me about that the other day because I've heard, I heard the same thing, and I was like appalled by that. I said, "How is it that only 500 something people even voted?"
Well, I had 570 something votes. It was more than that. It was about 700-800 people voted, but it's still lower than it should
Right.
be. The first time I was elected, there were about 2,000 people voted, something like that. But we've always had that's a nationwide problem of people not going to vote. And I wish
Yeah.
people would vote. But the problem is they say, well, he got elected, nobody ran against him. Well, first of all, nobody kept anyone legitimate from running against me. I had some people run against me that I think people knew weren't legitimate candidates. They were people you voted for if you just didn't like me. So I found out how many people just didn't like me, because if that guy got 24% of the vote, I realized 24% of the people just don't like me, because there's no reason to vote for that guy. He has no qualifications or anything. But people had a choice. They could vote for him or for me. But what it does show is that most people either thought you're doing a good job and nobody serious wants to run against you, or they thought you couldn't be beat because you're doing a good job. So I took that as a compliment that nobody wanted to run against me other than those two that did. And so I've been reelected by 84% of the vote and 74% of the vote. Those are good numbers for anybody, okay? So, I'll choose not to run now. So it's open for anybody to run. There's nothing holding anybody back. You don't have to run against an incumbent. You don't have to run against somebody who's been in office before. You can just run and say, this is what I want to do. Now, understand the mayor has to have the support of the board. We need board members that are going to be on the same page as the mayor. We had real good relations, myself and the board, for the first 9 or 10 years that I was mayor. This last year and a half or so, not so much. There's been a few board members that want to go in different directions, okay? Arguing basically about how to spend our money. I want to spend our money on public safety, on our firemen and police officers. They want to spend more money on recreation. I think recreation's a luxury that you have if you can afford it, but you spend money on what the main purpose of government is, which to me is public safety and infrastructure. So anyway, you just got to have board members and the mayor all be on the same page if you want to move forward. If they're divided, you're going to be going in different directions. You're not going to get anywhere, okay?
Well, what about the PYS, or the Petal Youth Sports Association? What happened with all that? That was brought up the other day. And another thing I wanted to ask you about, just to kind of clarify your perspective and your side of the story on some of this stuff. There's a business that it was in downtown Petal,
I know exactly what you're talking
revitalizations. They truly feel like they've been alienated or ran out of town. And is there anything you would like to explain about that?
Nobody has been run out of town. Did I tell them they could leave if they wanted to leave? Yes, because if you don't want to be here, then fine. You have options. Go somewhere else. But you're not going to stand up here and curse at my employees because they're trying to do their job and enforce the code that everybody has to go by. That particular business, that person has put out so much false information. I'm not even going to try to answer all of it. All I'll say is this. I haven't run anybody out of town. Nobody ran anybody out of town. They chose to leave. That's their choice. More power to them. I hope they're successful in whatever. But I will say this. When you own property, you don't have the right to create problems for your neighbors. What they wanted to do to their property was going to create more problems for their neighbors in terms of water and flooding and things like that. We told them they couldn't do it. We showed them the code. We told them the way they could try to do it. They didn't want to do it that way. And so after that, they decided that we were just not caring about them. And, well, we cared about their neighbors too, though. I can't say one person has more rights than somebody else. If you've got 3 or 4 neighbors around you, and then what you're going to do is cause water to go onto them that normally wasn't going their way, that's a problem. They have rights too, okay? So that person has a personal vendetta now because we didn't do what they wanted to do. They say all kinds of things I just laugh at because it's so far from the truth. But again, social media, you can put anything out there. People believe what they want to believe. More power to you.
What about, please ask him if there are any plans to make the sidewalks legally handicap accessible.
Well, it takes money, and we don't have the money for that. So there's no plan right now. We would love to be able to do that and widen a few of them and get some roots out of some of them that have bulked up. But the city doesn't have the money. Until the board votes for money to be for that, we don't have it.
Okay, David says, how do you think that the recent comments will affect property values and people's decisions to move to Petal?
Well, it shouldn't affect it at all because we have a good community here, and what one person says or doesn't say or whatever, I mean, I think that people have I would say this without trying to be insulting to anybody. I think that to think that somebody's comment on social media, which wasn't even directly related to something here, and somebody who we've never had any issues here over the last 11, 12 years that I know of, where anybody's come to me and said, we have a problem with people getting along, we have a problem with racism. That's never been brought to my attention any time. What I see is people of all races and all colors coming here from all over to shop. They feel safe in Petal. We have citizens, African Americans from Hattiesburg that come over here. They feel safer in Petal, shopping from Jones County, Perry County. I make a comment that I've already apologized for making and I shouldn't have made. But my gosh, that doesn't undo the fact that Petal's a good place to live and that we have good people here. And so I think that's way, way overblown by people who want to make it into something that's not. I think also the board's reaction to it made it a lot more worse than it had to be, because they acted like there was some type of huge crime or injustice against people here in Petal, which there's not. Again, if people have a specific problem they want to address, come to us and say, this happened, we need to address it. I haven't seen that yet. All I hear is, Marks must resign, Marks must resign. Well, I'm not resigning, so now let's go on to the next problem. What is the problem? I haven't heard anything specific other than, okay, I made something on social media that offended some people. But beyond that, what's wrong? We have great schools, we have a safe community, we have people from all walks of life that want to live here and move here. Okay, and I'm going to be gone in a year, so if I'm the only problem Petal's got, then I'll be gone in 12 months and everything can go back to being great. But if you think there's more problems, then tell me what there are and we'll go ahead and be working on them. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm here for 12 months. I'm listening. If you bring me a problem, let's go ahead and address it. But so far, all I hear is how Marks is a horrible racist and he must go. Okay, well, you made that point. I don't believe I am a horrible racist. I don't think anybody's ever accused me of that until this particular incident. Okay, that's your opinion. Now, what do we do to fix anything else in the community?
In the community, yeah. I think that people need to be more active, come up here, be willing to have these conversations, ask the questions, look at the information, and, really, instead of beating a dead horse here, figure out, like, what are your goals for this city? Like, when you became mayor, did you have a goal in mind?
Definitely. The goal was, first of all, to get us back on financial footing and not raise taxes every few years to try to pay for things that maybe we couldn't afford. I wanted, again, to give people a break. I wanted us to have less regulation on people living their own lives. We had, at the time I came into office, there was a tree ordinance that said that if you cut down a tree on your own property, the city, first of all, had to give you approval. Then the city could make you plant back a tree of the city's choosing on your own property and all of that.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. Okay, we took that away. Things like that. We cut our sign ordinance down from being 33 pages long to being 12 pages long. We cut out a bunch of regulations on being able to advertise your business and signs. So yeah, my goal was to get the government off people's back as much as possible. Okay, now again, there's times when the government has to have some codes and rules, or you have property that gets in bad shape, like we're talking about. But other than that, let people live their life and let them have their property and their business and run it the way they want to run it and do what they need to do and help them if they need help. That was my philosophy. That's been my philosophy the whole time I've been here.
So if you could think of a good campaign strategy for the upcoming, the people that are going to come into office next, that want to run for this, that want to be a part of the board, what do you think could be a good platform to use for creating change in Petal moving forward?
Well, when you say change, first of all, identify what needs to be changed. I haven't. That's the problem
I guess change isn't the right word. Maybe just forward movement, like going forward a little faster than we have been, because we're slow to move in Mississippi already. And just the whole, downtown development, the city life, whether it's business on Evelyn Gandy or local business in downtown, the local business community is definitely worried right now from what I'm hearing. They want to see and feel like they're in a city that's going to thrive and move forward and gain more and more traction. So what's an effective way to get there if people are saying that they want to see more growth, more opportunity?
Come forward with more than just a slogan. Have a plan. Research what the law allows the city to do, what the financial resources of our city are, what it would take to do what you think needs to be done, and have a plan. And that's what we have elections for. You have a vision, but you also need a plan. You can't promise people pie in the sky and rainbows and unicorns and not have a way to deliver on that. And I think a lot of people are great about a slogan, and they're great about let's have a dream, but then they're kind of short on how to pay for it and how do you actually get it done with the regulations and laws in place that you have. The state handicaps the cities in a lot of ways. The cities don't have a true home rule in Mississippi. We are allowed to do only what the state allows us to do. I would like to see the legislature open that up and let cities have more authority in our own city limits to make choices and changes that we feel we need to make without having to have the legislature give us approval every time we want to do something like that. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, but my thing would be research, what it is you want to do, find out if it's doable, find out what it would cost, and come forward with a plan and reach out to people and say, I have a plan. Here it is. This is how we're going to pay for it. It's not just me saying I want to do it. I've got a plan. That's how I think you win an election.
Well, the last thing I want to say is what I've learned from all of this is that there are a few key individuals in our city who do not take pride and this is, I've known this, but they don't take much pride in what they have here. And there are people in the city that would love to be able to run a skating rink or a goofy golf course, or would love to have their hands on that property in the middle of Petal that sold on the steps of the courthouse for barely anything, and that's just not an opportunity right now this open for grabs. So the only thing we can do is to try to apply pressure to the people who have that control or have the power or the means to make these things happen. Have the conversations with those people and see what can be done. Another thing, David, I saw your comment about beating a dead horse. What I mean by that is that, I have been from day one, a part of the protest, a part of the meetings. I've been trying to be more involved, and I'm seeing that a lot of people are just really only interested in the social media outrage right now, and rather than being at these meetings or showing up to have these conversations, they're beating a dead horse on social media, and they're not applying any kind of actual pressure or doing anything in the physical realm here of showing up and being active and asking the questions that need to be asked. So at this point, I think that anybody who expresses how they feel about this situation on social media should also come up here and have conversations with people that are involved in the city. And if they're not happy with leadership, then get involved any way you can, because this cannot happen. Nothing can happen without that. And this is a wake-up time for people to get involved in local government. We have a lot of people who want to argue about our presidency and want to argue about politics at the top, and they're not even willing to get involved at the bottom to understand how it even works. And that's got to start happening for us to really move forward as a collective community, I think. But all right, so we've been on here for a while, so I'm going to hop off now. But thank you for talking to us today. And if there's anything else that anybody has, any questions that they have for the mayor, if you have a concern, how can they reach you? What's the best way for them?
If they have a question, now I'll say this. I understand if they want me to resign and all that, hey, I've heard that. You don't have to bother contacting me with that. I understand. If you have a question, though, or a concern about something that's going on in Petal, you want to know why that is, or you have a problem, you want to complain, and let me see if I can look into what happened, you can send me an email at mayor@cityofpetal.com. I will respond. I'll read it. I'll respond. You can call here at 601-545-1776, and I will be glad to listen to whatever problem you have. Again, I'm not going to sit here and listen to everybody just tell me that I need to resign, because I'm not going to resign. So let's work together. And if you have a specific problem that you think needs to be addressed by the city, I'll listen to you and we'll see what we can do. Other than that, okay, get involved. Run for office next year and try to implement those plans that you want to see.
All right, awesome. Well, thank y'all for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.